Today is all about plot and your story structure. Welcome to day 4, the Kidlit Story Kickoff. We're going to be outlining your plot from start to finish using proven frameworks that will work for all kinds of children's books. In today's lesson, you're going to understand how to pick the right plot type for your story idea, what your main character wants, and what's in their way to really build out that complete plot arc in a simple formula you will use to map your story's beginning, middle, and end. Grab your workbook and let's dive in. Welcome back to Kidlit Story Kickoff. You have made it to day 4, only 2 lessons left in our special writing challenge. As we've been talking about all week, this is our polish method that we are using to create our stories. We have gone through the planning stage and we have officially made it to the outline your story stage, the O in polish. My name is Brooke Van Sickle, and I am an award-winning author, publisher, best-selling author of Picture Book Perfection, How to Write a Children's Book That Sells. I have used this own method for my own books as well as all my authors at the publishing house and the thousands of authors I teach every single month at Journey to Kidlit, so I know that it works for you. Hopefully, you have taken the time to gather your story assets and to think through all of the components of your story because we are now going to implement them and build out our complete story arc, known as a plot. So, when you are creating a plot, we are simply thinking of our story from the beginning to the end and what happens in between. That is the definition of a plot. So, now that you have everything we need to incorporate into your idea, it's time to put it into an outline. And this will apply to you whether or not you're writing a picture book, chapter book, or novel, but you have to have that external goal. So if you didn't listen to yesterday's lesson, make sure to go back, listen to day 3 so you understand the difference between internal and external goals. You watch the examples on that because you need to have the external goal in order to complete today's lesson. So the external goal is your driver. It is what's going to connect the plot, it's what's going to move the story along, and it's what your character wants. You have to understand that because then the next step is, well, what's standing in their way of getting that thing and how will they try to get it anyways? That is the catalyst. That's what's going to jump us into the plot and into the story. And it's going to lead us towards that conclusion. So these are the 3 questions that we are going to answer as we are building out our plot. There are different plot types that we can use to do this. If you are writing a chapter book or novel, you will most likely stick with the classic story plot example here. If you want to do the hero's journey, that is the universal plot arc. And I have a complete deep dive into this inside Kidlit Academy. I can get you access to that. But the other ones, the midpoint plot, the list, and how to plot apply more to our picture book friends. And since picture books are the most common type of children's book that you will be working on, we're going to make sure to talk about each of these as we go through today's lesson. Starting with the classic plot. So this one is a plot that you would think of. It has an introduction of the problem, takes 3 attempts to solve it, and finally reaches the end where they do or do not get what they were going for. Your main character does. Like I said, this will apply if you're working on a middle grade or a YA novel or a chapter book. You're going to have subplots and some depth that will be added into it, but you can use this also in picture books. But if you're working on a picture book, some other types of plots you could consider are the midpoint plot. So this is similar in setup to your classic plot outline where you have an introduction and the problem, and it's going to take 3 attempts to try to solve it. But instead of it taking 3 attempts for the whole story, it takes 3 attempts to reach about the halfway point of your story. And that's when your character has a turning point and will make a 180 change and go after a different goal. So maybe they give up on their goal. Maybe they are deciding they want to actually try to tackle this in a different way or a different method than they'd already been trying. Something that they're going to learn based off of the 3 attempts that they've already tried is going to make them reach this change. They're going to then do another round of 3 attempts to work towards this new goal. And that's where they're going to reach the conclusion where they will either choose to get the goal, achieve their problem, or they're not. The final plot type that you can choose from then is a list or a how-to plot. This is especially important for concept books, nonfiction type of books, any narrative type fictions or board books, because this is going to be more of your list or how to in terms of steps. So we'll have an introduction and we'll list out the problem just like we have with all of our different plot types. So when we're establishing our main character, we're establishing that external goal that we talked about. But then we are going to attempt to solve it with however many steps it takes. And if you don't have a set number of steps, like if it's an alphabet book, you know it's going to be 26 steps. But if it doesn't have set steps, you can choose somewhere between 5 and 9. 7's always a good sweet spot, but you just want to make sure that your pacing doesn't get too long and that your story itself doesn't get too long when you're thinking about the numbers. And then finally, we reach a conclusion where our main character gets what they were going for or they don't. And remember, when we are talking about our external goal, we're answering that so what? So, why are we here? Why do we care question to give that reader a reason to keep reading, a reason to pick it up off the bookshelf. It's what's going to build our back cover copy, it's what's going to build our pitch. So that's why we have to have it. And it's our driver for our plot. So make sure that you haven't skipped that step. I have examples now of how this plot works using those different plot outlines that we just talked about. Starting first with Dandy by Amy Dykman. So this came out with Little Brown in 2019. In this story, we meet Daddy, who wants to have a perfect lawn. He feels peer pressured into having it from his neighbors. But the problem is that when he goes to try to rid his lawn of all the dandelions, he's too late because his daughter has already befriended one. The catalyst here to propel us into the story is that the neighbors are still encouraging him to go for that perfect lawn. And they say simply, you know what you have to do. And Daddy did. So the first attempt to try to get rid of the dandelion without his daughter knowing is that he tries to find some time when she's not there. But Sweetie is always there. We have 3 different ways that he did that. Then we reach the midpoint when Sweetie finally leaves. So he has another opportunity. So he goes to mow it over, but he can't. He starts to get to feel guilty. He feels guilty about hurting his little girl's friend. But the third problem that happens is that his snips slip. And he ends up hurting the dandelion and removing the dandelion anyways, which brings us to the climax of, okay, maybe that wasn't the right goal. Maybe that wasn't the right answer to our problem. Maybe I should have prioritized my daughter over my perfect lawn. Oh no, what am I going to do? Sweetie is on her way home. And so, in conclusion, the dad ends up choosing his daughter's happiness over having a perfect lawn and gives up on the idea of keeping up with his neighbors. Super relatable, but really fun story and really hilarious and funny. If you haven't read Amy Dykman, I highly recommend her. The next example we have is We Don't Eat Our Classmates by Ryan T. Higgins. This is from Disney 2018. Ryan T. Higgins also has a different story called Mother Bruce, which is a really great example of a midpoint plot. But here is this plot outline for We Don't Eat Our Classmates. It starts with introducing us to Penelope T. Rex, and she is getting ready to start at a new school. Starting new school is a very common trope, a very common story idea for kids' books, but Ryan T. Higgins does this in a very unique way by using a dinosaur who goes to school with kids. And the problem is she's nervous and she really wants to make friends. So the external goal is I need to make a new friend, but I don't know how because I'm shy and nervous. And the catalyst of the story that's going to make it even more challenging is that they're children. And Penelope eats them because she is a dinosaur. She is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And that was her first impulse. So now it's going to make it even harder for her to make her goal of having friends come true. But she's going to try anyways. She's just going to have some challenges along the way. So her first challenge is that no one wants to be her friend because she ate them already. And so she begins to feel lonely. The second challenge that she runs into is that when she tries to be someone's friend, she tries harder and harder to be a good friend. She still can't help but eat them. And so that's a really big problem because, again, no one wants to be eaten. So she has to attempt to try again to be a good friend. So the third attempt is that when everyone was friends except for Walter. So she thinks, oh, maybe I can just be friends with the fish and I just won't have any of my classmates be my friends. But Walter, in turn, bites her, which makes her realize how her classmates feel when she bites them and when she eats them. And so then she decides that she no longer wants to eat kids. She just wants to be friends with them. And that's when her friends, her classmates, are willing to give her a chance and be her friend. So it's a really fun, unique way of telling their first day of school jitters and a new, fresh perspective on it. So definitely go and take a look at that story. Our final one here is Remarkably You by Patsy Miller. And so this is, like I said before, it's written in second point of view, and we are going to figure out how we can be change makers. So the introduction to this book is when we're going to meet the different readers that are going to be reading this book. And the catalyst is we want to change the world. So we're going to attempt to do that. Here's what we need to get started. So we don't want to sit on the sidelines. We need to find what needs fixing. It's just going to list out some different ways. We're going to reach a midpoint, though, of, well, we're not really sure what we should do or what that would be if we need to find what needs fixing. So that's when she brings in another attempt, and that is to look for moments to be like you. And there's a small win here of you and your voice are needed. So no matter who you are, no matter what type of story you're trying to write, it's important. Or in the actual story example, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, you can make a difference. And which leads us into the third attempt that she has is you can make a difference and you just have to find what you're good at. And the conclusion is believe in yourself. So we used all the components of the hero's journey in all of these examples to show you how you can manipulate and play and still build a plot that works for you. Go out and study books that have different plot types like yours. Go and get some list plots. Go and get some how-to list plots. There's a complete reading list if you need some ideas inside Picture Book Perfection. I also dive into more examples inside Kidlit Academy. But grab your story outline sheet. Everyone has a plot outline sheet if you have the workbook, and begin building out your outline. Be thinking about, based off of my external goal and where we are meeting the character, I'm going to introduce us to the character and their goal, what might be standing in their way. We're going to jump then into the story, go through the number of attempts that are necessary, and get us to the conclusion. And really be reading examples of books, successful books within your genre to really understand how to do that. That's my number one tip and my number one way to build skills is by reading and typing out already previously published books. All right, so that'll conclude the first two steps of the polished method. We're going to get into the next two steps in the very next episode. I will see you for day 5 of the story kickoff, our final day. So make sure to go and work on today's lesson and catch me in the next video. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button below and subscribe to get all the content inside the special 5-day challenge and all of the videos we post here on the Journey to Kidlit channel.